Hello everyone, I'm Donabel Arian Ruedas.
I'm Samantha Paulines.
And I'm Abigail Ravol.
Welcome to Echoes of Reality, How Literature Reflects Society.
In this episode, we're diving into powerful literary works that shines a light on the real struggles in society faces, like racism, blind tradition, and abuse of power.
These stories may be fictional, but the truths they reveal are painfully real.
Today, we'll be discussing three thought-provoking pieces. First, The Telephone Conversation by Wolsey Inca. Second is The Lottery by Shirley Jackson. And lastly, Animal Farm by George Orwell.
Alright, so let's talk about our first literary piece, which is The Telephone Conversation by Wole Soyinka. So this one really stood out to me.
Same here. It's a short poem, but it says a lot. It's about a black man who calls a white landlady to ask about renting an apartment. At first, everything seems polite until she suddenly asks, "How dark are you?"
Right, and that question changes the whole tone. You can feel the tension. It's a casual phone call, but then boom, racism shows up in just one sentence.
Exactly. And instead of getting mad or yelling, the man responds in a really smart way. He uses sarcasm to answer the landlady. Like he doesn't directly attack her, but he points out how ridiculous her question is by describing his skin in funny ways.
Yeah, I remember he say things like chocolate or brunette. It's clever. He keep his cool but still show how offensive her question is.
And what's sad is that even though this poem was written years ago, stuff like this still happens today. Some people still face racism in simple, everyday things like applying for a job or finding a place to live.
Definitely. It made me think of real stories I've seen online or heard from our friends where they were treated differently just because of their skin color. It's really horrifying.
This poem makes you reflect, like how would we react in that situation? Are we doing enough to speak up when we see the racism?
That's true. Telephone conversation may be short, but its message is clear. Racism is still here, and we need to be aware of how it can show up even in the smallest moments.
Now, let's talk about The Lottery by Shirley Jackson. At first, the story feels like a small town gathering. Everyone's chatting, children are playing, and there's a sense of normalcy. But as the story unfolds, we find out that the lottery is a horrifying ritual when one person is randomly chosen to be stoned to death but by their neighborhood, including their own family.
What's thrilling is how calmly the people accept it. Jackson uses symbolism to show the danger of blind tradition. The black box, for example, it is an old and falling apart, but no one replaces it. This shows that people stick to harmful practices just because they are afraid of change.
Exactly. The black box stands for tradition. And more importantly, how people cling to it even when they no longer remember why it started. It becomes a sacred object even though it's associated with death.
Another symbol is the slip of paper. They replace wooden chips, which shows that while the process might evolve slightly, the outcome of violence remains the same. It's a subtle way of showing that appearance change, but the core injustice stays.
Then there's Tessie Hutchinson, the woman who ends up being stoned. She shows how people are fine with injustice until it happens to them. Tessie only speaks up and says, "It isn't fair, it isn't fair," when her name is drawn. Before that, she was laughing and blending in.
And let's not forget the stones. They're primitive weapons used by ordinary people. Jackson is showing us that cruelty doesn't always require advanced tools or formal authority. It's everyday people who carry on the violence, and that's perhaps the scariest part.
Even the setting itself is symbolic. It's warm, sunny day in a peaceful village. That contrast between the pleasant atmosphere and the brisk even makes the violence feel even more disturbing. It's Jackson way of saying that evil can exist even in the most normal places.
The story forces us to reflect on our communities. What harmful systems or traditions are we still participating in simply because it's always been that way? It challenges the reader to think.
The title, The Lottery, is also a symbolic. It's misleading. Most people associate a lottery with something good like winning money. Jackson flips that expectation on its head using irony to show that we expect and what really delivers can be drastically different.
In the end, the lottery isn't just about a village tradition. It's a mirror held up to society. It warned us about the consequences of following the crowd without thinking and accepting violence as normal.
Alright, for our last piece, let's dive into Animal Farm by George Orwell. On the surface, it's about farm animals rebelling against their human owner to build a society where everyone is equal, but beneath that is a powerful allegory about how power can lead to corruption.
That's true. After the rebellion, the animals came up with the commandments to ensure equality. But over time, the pigs, especially Napoleon, start changing the rules to suit themselves. When began a hopeful revolution turns into the form of tyranny.
So, one of the clearest signs of manipulation is how the commandments keep changing. Like the rule, no animal shall kill another animal, is altered to say without cause. So, these little changes help the pigs justify their selfish action while confusing it with others.
And then there's this unforgettable line. It says that all animals are equal, but some animals are more equal than others. It perfectly captures how language is used to manipulate truth. The pigs twist ideals and silence opposition to maintain control using fear and propaganda.
Squealer, the pig who acts as Napoleon's spokesperson, constantly feed their animals false information. He makes the animals doubt their memories and believe everything is for the own good, even when they're clearly suffering.
So, Orwell wrote this story as a warning, especially about what happened during the Russian Revolution. But even today, the themes are very relevant. Leaders misusing power, spreading misinformation, and citizens being manipulated into silence.
Reading Animal Farm made me realize how important it is to stay aware and informed. Just because someone is in charge doesn't mean they're doing what's right. We have to ask questions. We have to ask questions and speak out and not let fear keep us quiet.
It also shows how dangerous it is to blindly follow authority. Without awareness and accountability, even good intention can lead to injustice.
Definitely, the story is simple but the message is very powerful, which is power can corrupt, and if no one speaks up, history just repeats itself.
It's definitely one of those stories that sticks with you. Simple language, but such a powerful message about leadership, truth, and the responsibility of the people. Orwell really knew how to turn a farmyard story into a wake-up call for society.
And that brings us to the end of our episode. Let's quickly go over what each story taught us.
Telephone conversations show us how racism can happen in everyday situations, like a phone call, and how people are still judged based on skin color.
And the lottery reminded us how dangerous blind tradition can be. Sometimes people follow rules just because they've always been there, even if they are very harmful.
An Animal Farm opened our eyes to how power can be abused. It warns us about corrupt leadership and how those in control can twist rules over their own benefit.
We hope these stories made you think about society, about people, and even about yourself. If you haven't read them yet, we really encourage you to give them a try. They're short but powerful.
So thank you very much everyone for listening to our podcast today. We appreciate your time and we hope you learned something meaningful.
Until next time, stay curious and keep reading. Bye! Bye!